In this next video, we're going to go over the civil geometry horizontal tools, and specifically we're going to go into the geometry line section. Okay? And so we're going to go to this first section, line between points, and we've got a little hint here. It says during this operation of the command, the keyboard Alt key can be used to switch between alternate solutions. When the skew angle is locked, pressing the Alt key switches between the two alternatives. Okay, so we're going to move into this line between points. I'm going to go to my feature definition bar, and I'm going to set this to geometry scratch. Typically when you're working in civil geometry and you're just placing lines and curves and stuff out there, you typically just want to be on a simple geometry scratch level. And so I'm going to go to my design standards under design, go to geometry, and select geometry scratch. Next I'm going to go over to my civil or my task tools here under civil tools. I'm going to go down to the third row. I'm going to pull out all these tools. I'm going to go and I can right click if I wanted to and open a geometry line as a toolbox, or what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to pin this pin the task out here, so when I move away from the tools they stay up and running. And so again I'm going to kind of be in this line between points area. I'm going to go to the line between points. If I look at the dialog box, you can see I'm using geometry scratch, and that's because I have geometry scratch defined in my feature definition toggle bar, and I have use active feature definition turned on. Okay, if you wanted to, you give it a name, but again I'm just laying out some alignments here, so I'm just going to just go with the default name of geometry scratch. And so all I'm going to do is just going to come out here and I'm going to left click and place. And that's all there is to placing a line between points. Now the nice thing about these this line is if I hit the F4 key to get out of the tool, I can come back, and if I click on the line I can adjust the bearing and the distance if I want to by just clicking on it and typing in some different value, like so. Very long there. So again, the undo tools work. The other thing you can do is if you zoom in close enough, you'll get these little grips on the end here. I can rotate it like so if I use that grip or that arrow. I can also extend it using that one. You can also move it horizontally or parallel. Move it parallel. You can also grab the dot and just move it all over the place if you want to, not based on a rotation or a length. Okay. We're going to move into this area here, simple line 2 element, simple line 2 element. We're going to use the second icon over from the left, and we're just going to kind of follow the heads up display here. It says locate element, so I'm going to go out and pick the curve. You can see this is where that note comes into effect. If you hit the Alt key, you can alternate between solutions. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Alt. You can see it's going between 1 and 2, and whichever one you want to do, I'm going to do the 2 option there. I'm going to left click, and I get some trim options when I get to this point. So I can trim back, I can trim none, or back. Only 2 options. So I'm going to go ahead and trim back. When I accept that trim back, you can see what happens. It trims the curve on back, and then it's ready to go on to the next tool to draw to. So again, I'm going to hit F4 again. And you can see the line drew to the element and then trimmed it back. Now, one thing you got to realize is this curve is still there. If I click on the original curve, you can see that it highlights, and so it will remember that that curve was originally drawn out to this location. So just be aware of that if you're hovering over stuff and things pop up, it's because elements were trimmed back. Now, if I didn't really want that to be trimmed back, I believe I can go into the properties here, and let me just see if it's in this one or the other one. Nope, it's this one. You can see I've got the option to trim back here, but I can change that to none, and then the curve will go back. Again, the undos redos work, so I'm going to do an undo to that and trim it back. Okay, now we're going to do a simple line from element. Simple line from element's the third icon over in the third row. I'm going to locate the element. I'm just going to use my heads up display. It's asking for a start point. I'm going to start right there, and I'm going to pull a line right off of that, and again I can trim back. So that's all there is to that one. Next one is line between arcs. Line between arcs. So when we go to the next icon there, we'll pick on the first arc. This one's going to ask for an offset. If you want to do an offset for training, we're just going to use 0 for our value. Enter that in. And it's going to ask for our start. Still asking for the start offset. You just have to accept that start offset. Now it's asking for the second element. Again, it's going to do an offset or offset option. We're going to say 0, and once it's set it to 0, then you got to accept it. And you can see again we've got some more solutions here. Again, you can hit the Alt key, or you can just kind of hover around, and that will change where you move your cursor. And so I'm just going to go with option 3 here. I'm going to accept it, and I'm going to trim none back. Okay. And so that's all there is to the geometry line tools.